I'm going to try giving you a nonpartisan view of what happens to interest rates during an election cycle when there is an election coming up, and then shortly thereafter, what happens to mortgage interest rates. Hey guys, it's Mortgage Mel, and it's time for today's Mortgage Minute. And like you, I have my own opinions, but I want to look at this from a nonpartisan basis and just take a look at what's happened in the past to give you an idea of what might happen in the future. The first visual you're going to see just above my head talks about whether a president had a recession during their term or not, and if they were elected. And that does seem to be an indicator of who gets elected or reelected more correctly. So if you did not have a recession during that term, then that incumbent tended to be reelected. By contrast, recessions are terrible news for incumbents. So if the economy has been really bad during the presidency, then they tend not to get reelected. And so you can see that that's terrible news for several recessions and not reelected right afterwards. And in some cases, these recessions were not the fault of that particular candidate, but they still took the brunt of that during the next election cycle. The next is a visual that just talks about will there be a recession in 2024? And of course, we're most of the way through the year, and it's been kind of up and down, right? But inflation has been very high. We know the pricing of goods and services has gone up, and it's harder for everybody to manage with the money that they're making because we have not paced our salaries and earnings with the increase in the price of goods and services. But from this visual, you can also see that this has been the steepest hikes that we've ever seen in interest rates. The Fed really hiked them up quite a bit during this last 3.5 to 3 3/4 years. So what really matters, it seems, is how people are really feeling about their lives. Is my life better or worse right now? Am I feeling the pinch from the economy not being so great? Or is it fantastic and I feel fantastic about what's going on? All of those things matter more and then subsequently affect mortgage interest rates. But I also found this a really interesting visual that talks specifically about different elections and when power changed hands, what happened to mortgage interest rates. So let's take a look. Like in 1972, Richard Nixon won in a landslide victory over George McGovern. And prior to the election, the mortgage 30-year rate was 7.43, and it increased slightly to 7.44, which is almost nothing, right? But it's an interesting little fact. Also, in 1976, Jimmy Carter won over Gerald Ford. Prior to the election, the rate was 8.81 and it declined slightly. But again, you'll notice it's really not a huge difference. So interesting, it's more volatile before the elections and tied tightly to whether or not there's a recession, and the overall perception of the economy really matters. The last one, and I found this really, really interesting, and I'm actually going to fill in the Biden numbers just on the top here. So you're going to see it right up here. And at the very top, I'll put Biden's numbers. But it talks about the election month, what happened to mortgage rates, and then which party it was. And it's just kind of interesting to see what the interest rates were when we ended the last 4 years and then started this new administration, and then what happened to interest rates during that time. So it'll be interesting for you to compare. You can obviously pause to watch this, so or just read it. And but that's kind of really interesting to take a look at. So we just talked a little bit about how mortgage interest rates were affected and are affected by election cycles. What happens during an election? Do they go up? Do they go down? Has it made a huge difference just before and just after the election? And we saw that really wasn't too bad. But what really does affect it long term are policies. So the financial markets and the policies that affect those financial markets, that will affect mortgage interest rates. I hope this information helps you guys understand this a little bit better, and hopefully it was kind of interesting just to look at. If you like this content, give me a like and a follow, and I hope you have a great day.